us the slides about obesity. You know, he said, I'm fortunate as David because now I'm 70 odd. I'm going to be 80. I'm worried about those kids that are diagnosed diabetes. They are young and they are dying. Now it's fine for me if I can die now. That's why I said there's something, signs when you are going to leave. Today I'm quoting those things. When we get the message that David is no more, all these things come in our minds that, man, maybe God was whispering in David's ears, telling us all these things, telling us all these wisdom words. We used to come to winter school, when preachers are preaching, they always said, behind a successful man, there is a woman. Now we turn that and said, behind successful activist in Gugulethu, in Khayelitsha, there is David Sanders. Even when we attended 3 days pastor conference, people are asking us that as community activists, as David Sanders behind us, we are just moving. All what we say today, he was our mentor. He inspired us. He taught us good things, how to strive for a better living, not for yourself. When even we said, okay, there is this seeds that you said now, each community must have a food gardening, because no one must have an excuse that I'm defaulting because there's no food at home. You must have something to do, Then David said, okay, in this program, we must see that which are those communities and those projects that we're going to support so that they can sustain the community. Then I'll come in and say, but we must stop the laziness also, because sometimes we are lazy. When the sun moves this side, we take a chair and sit this side. When the sun moves in the north, we take a chair and move to the north, not have something to do, But having this program, Gugulethu, that our people had already submitted that they must do, in order to get something, you must do something. My last word that I'm going to say about the program, NCD at Gugulethu, David said when we were talking about do something, persuade this government, man. There is Pick n Pay in Philippi. But when I was sitting, one of the doctors, people were complaining about the Russians that they bought in that Pick n Pay. Then David said, no, they take all the old stuff and take it to your Pick n Pay in Gugulethu. Don't buy it. He will always teach us, don't think Viennas and Russians are good. You see, Viennas are fat like me, and you think maybe they are healthy food. Don't eat it. They are taking it from Constantia and put it in Gugulethu so that you can get sick and die before dying. That was David's wisdom words. Today we said the song that the lady was singing here, we must live, I'm a fat cook. You know almost how to make fat cook. Your dough and your fish oil that is burning, and then you put then it will be nice and Then David said no. When she started the song and said, no, we must eat roasted cook, because roasted cook you don't use fish oil. You just take it as it and put it on the fire, then on your stomach there's no oil on it. I said, yeah, this thing, But for David, to honor him, we will do it. We will do it, not just for him, for our health also, because we want to live longer. Who knows that I will become 70? David will come really late at the meeting. Then, when he get in, sit down and look at this laptop. Maybe the chair is not there. He don't even look at you. He said, no, you must share. I say, man, what's wrong with this man? You know, he wanted everyone to do something. He wanted everyone to grow. He wanted everyone to be somebody for your community, whatever I can call it. You understand? He wanted us, even when you shot, it must rotate. If it's you today, it must be that one tomorrow, so that we can learn skill. We've learned a lot from him. So, join the club. Join the club, baby girl. Join the club. I know we will talk and talk and talk, but there are times that you're going to rewind those cassettes and think, maybe today if David was here. But thank you. You know, you will take me to Clermont when meeting are finishing at night. Then you will show me one of the nightclub and come and say, maybe my son is here. Can we stop here? I said, no. I said, David, I know you like to do this. Let's go and check. I said, David, we cannot stop. It's too late now. But in all of that, we will take the spear of David and do whatever he would like us to do. We know that the Spirit will always be amongst us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Norway. I've rarely heard a better characterization of David. That was exactly right. I promise you, next time you come to Winter School, I will be on your case about the coffee and the peanut butter sandwiches and the sugar. I'd next like to ask Dr. Verona Matthews to speak on behalf of the school. Verona, as she will probably tell you, has been with us almost from the beginning, as a student, as a junior lecturer, a senior lecturer. She is one of the ones who will take the baton forward, one of the ones who doesn't have gray hair quite yet. Well, not very much. So, Verona, thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming. I first want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my story. I started at School of Public Health, a recent graduate. I just came out of undergraduate degree, and I started at the School of Public Health. Being this bright-eyed young woman from a community where we didn't have a lot of good male role models, and had no idea what is to come. And I was so blessed and so fortunate to come with David and Gavin, who treated me with respect, professionalism, and giving me a vision and leadership that I could follow. And for me, it was so amazing because coming from where I came from, and there was no questions asked, it wasn't about where you came from, it's what you contributed to the table at that point. And I always say, you know what, David saw something in me that I never saw in myself. He had this confidence in me. He saw potential that till today I still wonder, what did you see that I never saw? And most of you wouldn't know, but David was at my wedding. He was there with both my pregnancies. He was there in my mother's sickness. He was there with both amputations. He was there when I was sick. He went through me, through my life cycle. And I know Sue and the children, I'm one of the other daughters. I'm one of the other sons. And that you don't know of, there's many of us that David impacted on beyond the public health, beyond just being the person that he was. He laid the foundation of public health to me. I didn't understand. I came from a social work background. I didn't know what was public health. He explained it to me in the most simplistic terms. And one of the things that nobody can take away from David is the only person I know that had permission to be late. Everybody waited for David because you knew what he was going to contribute was going to be so valuable. It was worth the wait. Yes, it was frustrating. I mean, it was not nice to wait every time. And I'll have to take also the responsibility. He was also sometimes late because of me, because he made time for people. Even if he was on his way out and you just, David, can I ask? And David would stop and listen. And I think that was the character of a leader. And he had this vision that you couldn't deny. He had this reasoning that you can't actually find fault with. Who could be against equity? Who could go against the struggle of health? How can you do that? When I heard the news on the Saturday morning, I was actually having a picnic with my children and my husband on Camps Bay. And needless to say, my picnic was over. I was so overwhelmed with sadness. And on the drive home, I explained to my children, who's David? Because they didn't understand. Why is mommy crying? Why are you so sad? And I explained who David was. And so my children asked, so he was like your other daddy? And I said, yes, he was. For them to the way I was explaining it. And upon reflection, and I came home and I was thinking, what were the last things that David said to me? And, you know, and I just became overwhelmed with sadness because I remembered the last thing that David was saying to me is, Verona, where is your voice? I have not heard your voice. You were so strong at the beginning. You were an activist. Where are you? And I was thinking, you know, that's true. When PHM started, I was part of it, and then I got almost like distracted into the other things. And I said, and on that Saturday afternoon, I said, Verona, you need to continue the struggle. You are the legacy of David Sanders. You're going to have to continue this battle. You're going to have to speak up. And David always said, you know, you don't need to have a microphone because you have a loud voice. And you have the power that people listen to you when you speak. So use that voice. So we were part of this ministerial team, and I tell him, David, I wanted to update you. So he said, no, he's not going to be there. But Verona, there's 2 things you must remember to say. And I was thinking, I'm now already on my own, but you're still telling me what to do. You're making sure the message gets across. And I just want to say that all of us are here because David's message came loud and clear. You are here because you heard the message. Our challenge is to take that message forward. And how we do it in each of our own contexts, in our own roles that we play, I pledge to take David's message forward, to continue with the struggle for health, to address equity, and I challenge you to do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Verona. I now want to call on the chairperson of the board of one of the other organizations that David was very passionate about in his last years, the Alternative Information and Development Center, MP Giyose.
Good afternoon, my good friends. You can see now that even I am lost. I don't know really what to say, but I must still say it. David was a great friend. Now, I've got a personal yardstick for this. It is true, it happens to be true, that recently I got afflicted with a certain health condition, which I will not really waste your time by disclosing. But David met me here in Cape Town, being quite aware of what had happened to me. And he then gave me a lesson of life. And he said to me, please, MP, you go home and make sure that you take that treatment throughout your life. Don't default. Well, I've not defaulted. I've taken the treatment that David gave me, and I'm quite happy about it. But, my good friends, who is this David who has got so much power, so much persuasion? You know, these ladies, these public health ladies of David, I've seen them. I've seen them at AIDC. They come there, they make a lot of noise. You know? But I now do recall exactly who they are. Now that they've come here and they have deciphered themselves. I'm very happy to be with them here. Now, but who is this David? Now, I think there's one undeniable fact about David, which must be everlasting for good. David was a socialist. He was a socialist. For him, none of the shibboleths that people tend to throw around was fitting. No. He remained a steady socialist thinker who was always with you all the time. Therefore, David, I will say to you, please walk steadily with a steady walk in all the days that are still to come. Make sure, David, that you are listened to. People must listen to you. Thank you very much for your life. Thank you very much for what you have done for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gyosi. It struck me there's one thing that I saw in David a few times. I mean, we talk about his activism, his public health work, his academics. A couple of times in working with him, I saw when he became a doctor, his training. He, from what I could see, was an absolutely brilliant diagnostician. I saw him on several occasions look at people and say, that person has pancreatic cancer because he has a backache. Nobody thought that, went to the doctor, and eventually it turned out that was exactly what it was. And seeing David turn into a doctor and the incredible interpersonal care in that was something that always touched me very, very deeply. And I think that is obviously something that wove throughout his life, but it was very interesting and very lovely to see that also in these few engagements. I now want to ask Ms. Tracy Naledi to come up. She's worked with David in different capacities over many, many years, and she will share some of her experiences with him. Thanks, Tracy.
Enkosi, ma'am. I'd like to start off by greeting Sue, Oscar, please, and Ben. And greeting the rector, the director, Uta, and the rest of the Western Cape School of Public Health family. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues from the presidency. Thank you. From the presidency, Mr. Chulani Masilela from the National Department of Health, Yogan Pillay from the Provincial Department of Health, Krish Valabji, and any others that I haven't seen. I'd like to greet People's Health Movement, activists in the House, community members, colleagues, and friends. Thank you, Sue, for asking me to come here and share my reflections. I really thought I'd be stronger. I hope to share how David has influenced my life and my work in public health as a public health physician and a policymaker. I first met David about 20 years ago when I was studying to be a public health physician, and I was a registrar. In fact, I attended the winter school run by Verona Matthews that was here just now on monitoring and evaluation. My training was at the University of Cape Town, and but I had to come here to UWC to get some practical learnings. I remember contrasting the majestic UCT, the buildings that we had, to the very modest structures that were here at UWC, which were remodeled shipping containers. Yet inside those shipping containers, I remember receiving very valuable, practical, hands-on information and knowledge and skills that have actually helped me throughout my public health career. I, of course, remember the peanut butter jam sandwiches. I must say, coming from UCT, I was very surprised that that was being served, but at the same time, they made me feel so at home. They made me remember home. I met David again when now I was a specialist, when we worked together in a project called the Western Cape Burden of Disease Reduction Project. When the Western Cape Department of Health was challenged by former Premier Rasool to come up with a strategy that would close the tap of the burden of disease instead of wiping the floor with curative services that were slowly but surely demolishing the provincial budget, making it very difficult to fund other developmental priorities. Both health and education in most provinces make up about 80% of the provincial budget, leaving only about 20% for other developmental priorities. Professor Housam, the former head of department of the Western Cape, collaborated with all the academic institutions in our province to do research on social determinants, and I was the sucker that took up the job of coordinating academics. I did this alongside Professor Johnny Myers, where the both of us co-chaired this process. This work became seminal in our province in influencing an intersectoral agenda to address some of the issues of social justice that David was passionate about. And not only within the Department of Health, but within the broader Western Cape government. And this was 10 years ago, but we are still reaping the rewards of this work that David was a part of. For me personally, in working with David, I truly understood the role of structural determinants on our health and the power of community health workers in particular to improve access to health and well-being. I remember David one day showing me, I mean, I think as others have spoken, David had a lot of patience in some ways and was able to explain things to you in a way that gave meaning and really made you understand, and it become part of what you also want to be part of changing. And he was showing me, he was talking to me about obesity, and he was showing me some slides that he'd put together where he showed me data that showed that actually after 94, in opening our borders, what we did was bring in to our country lots of unhealthy foods and fast food outlets that were influencing obesity in our country. He shifted my understanding of what was important to do. He taught me that it's not enough to focus on health promotion and speaking just to people. It's important. I'm not saying it's not important, but he said we needed to do that in terms of some of the things that Umam Noe was talking about. But also, we had a responsibility to influence policy that would make cheap foods easy to get, unhealthy foods easy and cheap to get. And he said if we could do that and stop all these cheap foods coming into our country, we'd do we'd have great progress in terms of addressing obesity. After all, what we try and do in health promotion is to make the healthy choice the easy choice to make. David had a very prickly character though. And he continued to challenge us that he knew in the department as public officials to do better with community-based services and child health in particular. I must be honest, there were many occasions, and I think sometimes I did, duck and run when I saw David in public fora. Because I knew I was in trouble for something or the other. He would always call me out and about something or the other that the department has done, about the fact that we are not doing enough to recognize the value of community health workers and really empowering to do what they can do. We're not doing enough to sort out malnutrition. And the thing he used to call me out the most about was not attending UWC events. And he would always tell me that, do you know the types of people I bring to these events? These are global experts. And you would learn a hell of a lot more from them than your bureaucratic meetings. Those of us who took the time to see past the prickliness of David and took time to work with him, what we found behind the prickliness was a great deal of patience, of generosity, and willingness to give his time selflessly. He would work along us, patiently teaching us, patiently building our capacity, patiently working with us to figure out strategies and policies. David was instrumental in developing quite a few policies in the Department of Health, some of which were the vitamin A policy, the breastfeeding restoration policy, and he was part of the first 1,000 days policy, and there are many more. I was again fortunate to work closely with David when we developed and shaped a program, and we actually started an NGO called Tekano, the Atlantic Fellows for Health Equity in South Africa. Tekano is a Sotho word meaning equality. David, and together with our colleagues Mvuyo Tom, Letitia Rispel, and Steve Reed, we were the founding board members of this organization. In fact, I was reflecting that this past weekend, when we just had the PASA conference, David would have been so proud to see our fellows, how they took up space, how they used their voice, how they used their power to actually make sure that all of us have a better world. David has influenced, as you've heard, thousands, tens and thousands of us. I don't know how many, but there are lots of us. He's influenced us to think critically about the role of inequality and health, and understand that to address it, we need value-based leaders who work collectively to build coalitions and social movements from the ground up to address the inequities that cause disease. We will definitely miss David. As we say in my language, silahlekelwe. Sue, Oscar, Lisa, and Ben, may you be comforted by the knowledge that his work and his teachings lives in all of us, his students, his colleagues, and his friends. He has not died, he has multiplied. Lala ngoxolo, David.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I now have to do the one thing that one invariably has to do at these large events. A car is parked in. So there is a car CA 846231 who is parking in another one. So could you please move your car because somebody actually has to leave. CA 846231. And now I would call on Sue. She wants to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been asked to say thank you on behalf of the family, but before that I've felt moved to say a few things myself about David, so I'll do that first. Firstly, I wasn't aware that he ever liked peanut butter. He never ate it. Secondly, David made me laugh, and for those who know me, laughter is a very important thing for me. And he also made me smile, not all the time, but a lot of the time. And sometimes people, I think, at this time are wondering why I smile still. And when I think of David, I smile, because he's always made me smile. And it doesn't mean I'm not sad, but that is what I always think of when I think of David. I think of him with a smile. David was also capable of really deep loving. And as somebody said to me, the way you can keep somebody alive is to never stop loving them. The other thing about David, which I admired so much, was that he never ever gave up. He fought to the bitter end for socialism, for justice, for Palestine, for equity and health. He kept fighting. The fight was never over. It wasn't for him to grow old and say, no more fighting. He fought to the end. He never gave up trying to catch those fish either. He never gave up looking for the most perfect places to go to. And sadly, at the end, despite all his energy to never give up, his heart gave up. And it wasn't, I don't think it was his wish. He was still passionate, but his heart couldn't take it anymore. So now I'm going to just say thank you. And this is a thank you from all of us, particularly to University of the Western Cape, to the rector, the School of Public Health, to Uta in particular, who so sensitively organized this ceremony with my participation, and knowing that it was a difficult time for me to participate in planning, and I appreciate it. And to everyone who's arranged today, the photos of David, the way the hall is decorated, the music, everything has been so touching, and paying so much attention to detail of the way that David would have perhaps liked to have been remembered. I'd like to thank civil society groups, AIDC, PHM, etc., for participating in organizing this ceremony and providing the focus of David the activist. There's been so many tributes from the Department of Health, in the media. There have been personal messages which have been so comforting and helped keep the spirit of David alive for a bit longer. I'd like to thank everyone for coming here today, friends, comrades in struggle, colleagues, both his colleagues and my colleagues from particularly Mowbray Maternity and our Department of Obs and Gynae. I'd like to thank his relatives who've come all today. And people have come not only locally, but from other parts of South Africa, and even, I think someone's flown all the way, Lewis, from the US. So thank you so much for everyone who's come. And then lastly, of course, the biggest thank you is to David for 43 years of a exciting, unconventional, sometimes challenging, funny, and deeply loving partnership. I can hear David saying, I've used too many adjectives in that sentence, but at least I did put the commas in the right place. Suffice to say, he's been a husband and a father of a very special kind. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. There's a photo hanging outside that I really love. It says everything about the strength, the depth, the beauty of your partnership. So thank you for David as well. Before we end, I want to say a few thank yous as well. I want to thank the team that made today possible. Of course, the friends and colleagues from the People's Health Movement with whom we planned today, and the family. And particularly the team at the school. It's been really, really moving how everybody here pulled together from the moment news of David's death broke. Particularly Tamlin Peterson took over the organization of today's event and worked to pull together staff, vendors, suppliers, AVS, pulled out all the stops, the university authorities, and they again also pulled out all the stops to make sure that we could have a sad but really beautiful celebration today. I want to thank them all. And of course, I want to thank all the contributors and speakers today. I think we've heard wonderful tributes. I think they painted the canvas of David's life and David's legacy really beautiful, all aspects of it. So thank you all for your thoughts, your messages, your contributions. Now, when you leave just now outside, you will find some sustenance outside, and guess what it is? We could not have an event, so we don't have meat. No, we're sorry, we won't have fed cook. There will be peanut butter sandwiches, and there is fruit. And it's interesting that David didn't like peanut butter, because I remember, I mean, he certainly made all of us eat peanut butter. And I remember when I attended the very first winter school course on that is one of the courses that is still running, Introduction to Primary Healthcare. He showed us the slides of the program that he had been running and leading in Zimbabwe. And that was very much peanut butter porridge and using peanuts in a range of different ways. So to this day, peanut butter sandwiches are an absolutely sacrosanct part of the School of Public Health and Winter School. And I hope you enjoy them. We improved on the bread for today. Enjoy them in the safe knowledge that David would have wholeheartedly approved. So thank you all for coming. Thank you to all those who joined by live stream. I hope the connection was good enough. As we heard so many times today, David will live in all our memories and in the work as we will go forward, continuing the struggle for universal health, for comprehensive primary health care, for equity and social justice in this country and across the world. Thank you very much.